In 2016, Ed Sheeran walked into a London studio with one goal: write a hit song for Rihanna. By the end of the day, he'd accidentally created the biggest song of his career, a track that would break streaming records, spend 33 weeks in the Billboard Top 10, and become the most played song on UK radio in history. But what if I told you that Shape of You almost never happened? That it was born from a happy accident, a casual keyboard riff. And the moment Ed realized Rihanna would never sing about putting Van the Man on the jukebox, this is the wild story of how a songwriting session for someone else became Ed Sheeran's masterpiece. To understand how Shape of You came to exist, we need to go back to 2016. Ed Sheeran was at the peak of his career, but he was also taking a break from his own music. Instead of writing for himself, he was focusing on crafting hits for other artists, and he had his sights set on one of the biggest stars in the world. Shape of You is actually a really random one, because I went in to write songs for other people with a guy called Steve Mack and Johnny McDade, and we were writing this song and I was like, this would really work for Rihanna, Sheeran explained. The team was formidable. Ed Sheeran, the melodic genius behind hits like Thinking Out Loud, Steve Mack, a producer who'd worked with One Direction and Little Mix, and Johnny McDade from Snow Patrol, a songwriter with both indie credibility and pop sensibility. Producer Steve Mack says, if we had went into the session writing a song for Ed Sheeran, I don't think we'd ever had recorded Shape of You. This wasn't supposed to be an Ed Sheeran song at all. It was meant to be their gift to one of pop's biggest superstars. The creative breakthrough came in the most unexpected way. The process began when Mac played the iconic opening notes on a keyboard. Literally, the first thing he did was he went over to the piano and started playing what would become one of the most recognizable riffs in modern pop. But this wasn't just any keyboard riff. This was something special. The tropical influence sound, the infectious rhythm, the way it immediately made you want to move. It was pure gold, and everyone in the room knew it. According to his songwriting partner, Johnny McDade, when it's time to work, he brings a set of Legos with him for the easily distracted Sheeran to play with in order to keep him focused. But on this day, Ed didn't need the Legos. He was completely locked in. The melody came first, then the rhythm, then the concept. They were crafting something that felt both familiar and fresh, drawing from dancehall and tropical pop influences while maintaining Ed's signature storytelling style. But as they worked, something started to shift. The song was taking on a personality that felt less like Rihanna and more like Ed Sheeran. The turning point came when Ed started adding his personal touches to the lyrics. And then I started singing lyrics like putting Van the Man on the jukebox. And I was like, well, she's not really going to sing that, is she? And then we sort of decided halfway through that we were just going to make it for me. Van the Man, Van Morrison, was pure Ed Sheeran. It was the kind of reference that showed his musical knowledge, his British sensibility, his love for classic artists. Suddenly, they realized they weren't writing for Rihanna anymore. They were writing for Ed. The lyrics began to flow with a new authenticity. Instead of trying to imagine what a global pop star would sing about, Ed was drawing from his own experiences, bars, meeting someone special, the electric feeling of attraction. What makes the lyrics so powerful is how they balance the universal with the specific. Everyone can relate to meeting someone in a bar, that instant attraction, the way conversation flows when you connect with the right person. But Ed's specific details, the jukebox, the way he describes the encounter, make it feel real and lived in. The song became a perfect blend of commercial appeal and personal authenticity. It had the infectious energy that radio needed, but it was grounded in Ed's genuine voice and experience. What the team didn't know was that their biggest challenge was still ahead. Though they were not directly involved in the song's creation, 3 other musicians, Candy Burruss, Tamika Cottle, and Kevin Briggs, were also given a songwriting credit. The melody of Shape of You bore similarities to TLC's 1999 hit No Scrubs, which meant the original writers of that song deserved credit and royalties. This wasn't plagiarism. It was the complex reality of modern music, where melodies can echo each other across decades. But Ed and his team weren't discouraged. They knew they had something special, and they were committed to getting it right. Every vocal run, every production choice, every lyrical tweak was scrutinized and perfected. None of us thought that much into it, Ed Sheeran says, right before breaking down in great detail, bit by detailed bit, just how much thought went into creating this year's biggest musical hit. The paradox of Shape of You was that it felt effortless while being meticulously crafted. When Shape of You was released on January 6, 2017, alongside Castle on the Hill, it didn't just become a hit. It became a cultural phenomenon that redefined what streaming success could look like. On the issue date, 2 September 2017, Shape of You spent its 32nd week in the top 10 of Hot 100, tying the record for the most weeks on that chart. The following week, Shape of You spent its 33rd consecutive week in the top 10, breaking the 20-year-old record. The song became a global anthem. It topped charts in over 30 countries, became the most streamed song on Spotify at the time, and proved that Ed's decision to keep the song for himself was absolutely right. Ed Sheeran was named Songwriter of the Year at the 2018 Ivor Novello Awards. In addition, he, Johnny McDaid, and Steve Mack were also honored, snaffling the Ivor Novello Award for Most Performed Work for Shape of You. But the real victory was creative. They'd taken a song originally meant for someone else and turned it into the most authentic expression of Ed Sheeran's artistry. The success of Shape of You changed everything, not just for Ed Sheeran, but for the entire music industry. It proved that streaming could create massive hits, that authenticity could coexist with commercial appeal, and that sometimes the best songs come from happy accidents. The song became a template for how modern pop could work. Infectious melodies, personal lyrics, global influences, and production that worked both in headphones and in stadiums. For Ed Sheeran, Shape of You confirmed that his instincts were right. The song that almost went to Rihanna became his biggest hit because it was purely, authentically him. Shape of You proved that the best art often comes from letting go of your original plan and following where creativity leads. What started as a song for Rihanna became Ed Sheeran's masterpiece because he had the courage to make it personal. Songwriter-producers Steve Mack and Johnny McDaid described the happy accident that's now the third biggest selling song in England. Sometimes the greatest successes come from the moments when we stop trying to write for others and start writing for ourselves. The story of Shape of You reminds us that authenticity is the most powerful force in music, and that sometimes the song that changes everything is the one you never planned to write. What's your favorite unexpected creative breakthrough story? Have you ever had a moment where changing direction led to your best work? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories behind the songs that accidentally changed the world.